A quiet suburban night stretched over the Carter household, the distant hum of crickets blending with the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. Inside, Lisa Carter sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea and scrolling through her tablet. Jack had fallen asleep on the couch, his arm draped lazily over the side, the faint glow of the TV flickering against his face. It was peaceful, a rare moment of normalcy in their lives. Then, everything changed. A hum rippled through the air, making the windows tremble. The lights flickered. Lisa's cup rattled against the table as an eerie glow illuminated the backyard. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned toward the window, eyes widening at the impossible sight before her. A massive alien craft hovering silently above the house, its metallic surface reflecting the moonlight like liquid mercury. Before she could scream, a beam of pulsating blue light shot down from the belly of the craft, washing over the entire room. Her body locked up, muscles frozen as she felt herself pulled upward, lifted effortlessly through the ceiling, through the open air, into the cold, sterile interior of the vessel. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. She wasn't afraid, no, she was furious. If these creatures thought she would be some helpless captive, they were about to learn the hard way that they had taken the wrong woman. The instant the beam released her, she hit the floor in a crouch, scanning her surroundings. The walls were sleek and smooth, humming with energy. Dozens of reptilian figures loomed around her, their scales glistening under the dim blue lighting. Their eyes were cold, calculating, and utterly confident. One of them, larger than the rest, stepped forward, gripping a metallic staff that crackled with energy. It tilted its head, examining her like one might observe an insect beneath a microscope. Human female specimen secured. The creature spoke in a guttural, hissing tone. Prepare for transport to the research facility. Lisa clenched her fists, hiding the smirk threatening to break across her face. Research facility? Oh, they really had no idea. Back on Earth, Jack Carter woke to an eerie silence. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. His senses, honed from years in the field, screamed at him to move. His gaze flicked to the window, where he noticed the faint shimmer in the air, the residual glow of something unnatural. Then, his eyes fell on the small burn marks on the floor near the kitchen table. His heart slammed against his ribs. Lisa. He was on his feet in an instant, scanning the house. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. No broken glass. But the energy residue crackling faintly against the furniture told him all he needed to know. He had seen something like this before, deep in classified reports, whispered about in the dark corners of military briefings. Extraterrestrial extraction. His pulse remained steady as he grabbed his phone and activated a secure line. He knew exactly who to call. I need a location trace, he said the moment the call connected. The voice on the other end hesitated before responding. Jack, this is above even your clearance. Walk away. That's not happening. His voice was like steel, devoid of hesitation. They took Lisa. Silence. Then a long sigh. Sending coordinates now. Within seconds, a flashing dot appeared on his screen. High atmosphere, moving fast. Not government. Not commercial. Something. He clenched his jaw, his mind already working through the next steps. He wasn't going through official channels. There was no time for red tape. Moving with the efficiency of a man who had done this 1,000 times before, Jack unlocked a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. A black case greeted him, its biometric scanner flashing red before turning green. He popped it open, revealing an arsenal of weapons, encrypted drives, and a single keycard. Jack pulled out a sleek handgun and tucked it into his holster. Then, he grabbed a secondary device, a frequency disruptor designed for situations exactly like this. His contact had warned him about abductions, and he had prepared accordingly. The fools had no idea who they had just messed with. Within minutes, he was in his car, tearing down the backroads toward a hidden hangar on the outskirts of town. The old military base had been decommissioned years ago, but Jack had kept a few things off the books. As he approached, the massive doors hissed open, revealing a modified spacecraft, a sleek, black vessel salvaged from a classified government project. He had worked on it for years, tweaking its systems, upgrading its stealth capabilities. He never thought he'd have to use it. Climbing into the cockpit, he activated the ship's AI, traced the signal and set course. A soft chime acknowledged his command as the engines roared to life. Jack took a steadying breath. "They took my wife," he murmured to himself, gripping the controls. His voice was calm, but beneath it lay something deadly. He launched into the sky, the ship cutting through the atmosphere like a knife. The chase was on, and Jack Carter was bringing hell with him. Lisa Carter stood in the center of the alien chamber, surrounded by reptilian figures who clearly believed they had captured something fragile. The air smelled metallic, tinged with an unfamiliar energy that made her skin prickle. The leaden, a towering figure draped in dark ceremonial armor, tilted its head, studying her with slitted yellow eyes. Its voice, guttural and thick with condescension, slithered through the cold air. "Human female, you are now property of the Dominion. Your kind's biology is of interest to us. Resistance is pointless." Lisa took a slow breath, her fingers flexing as she assessed her surroundings. The ship's interior pulsed with strange lights, walls made of some smooth, aorganic matter. A row of consoles lined one side of the chamber, manned by smaller, their claws tapping against translucent screens. A set of reinforced doors blocked the only visible exit, guarded by two sentries gripping weapons that hummed with latent energy. She didn't have much time. The leader turned to one of the technicians. "Prepare the specimen for analysis. Begin neurological mapping." Lisa smiled, but it wasn't the reaction they expected. It wasn't fear. It wasn't submission. It was something far more dangerous. "You just made the biggest mistake of your lives." Before the leader could react, Lisa moved. Fast. She surged forward, catching one of the guards. With a quick twist, she yanked the weapon from his grasp and drove her elbow into his throat. He choked, stumbling back, but she didn't give him time to recover. Pivoting, she fired the alien rifle at the second guard. The blast sent him sprawling, his body hitting the floor with a dull thud. The chamber erupted into chaos. The technicians shrieked in their strange, hissing language, scrambling to call for reinforcements. The leader let out a sharp roar, signaling for more guards. Lisa didn't wait. She turned the rifle toward the control consoles and squeezed the trigger. Explosions rocked the room as the energy blasts shattered the delicate alien technology, sending sparks and debris raining down. Alarms blared, flashing red lights painting the chamber in violent hues. Smoke curled from the destroyed consoles, and the halls of the ship now echoed with the heavy footsteps of soldiers rushing toward the disturbance. Lisa ducked behind a fallen piece of equipment, her mind racing. She needed a plan. Stealing a weapon was one thing, escaping an alien warship was another. Then, through the thick walls, she heard it. A deep, resonating boom. A sound she knew all too well. A ship was coming. And not just any ship. Jack. The realization sent a fierce wave of relief through her. But she couldn't rely on him to do all the work. She had to hold out until he got here. She reloaded the alien rifle, an unfamiliar mechanism, but instinct and training kicked in. One of the remaining, a officer, lunged at her, swinging a blade crackling with green energy. Lisa sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted hard, sending the blade clattering to the floor. She didn't hesitate. She drove the butt of the rifle into his head, and he crumpled. The heavy doors hissed open. Reinforcements had arrived. A squad of warriors stormed in, their weapons raised. Lisa ducked behind cover as plasma fired her through the space she had just occupied. The walls sizzled where the shots hit, leaving deep, molten scars. She fired back, dropping two soldiers before they could react. Then, the ship shook violently. A thunderous impact reverberated through the metal floors, sending some of the stumbling. The lights flickered as another explosion rocked the ship. Lisa smirked. That was definitely Jack. Above, in the cold expanse of space, Jack's ship streaked toward the alien vessel like a missile, dodging incoming fire from the defense systems. His hands moved fluidly over the controls, overriding the ship's automated countermeasures. He wasn't just here for an extraction. He was sending a message. Locking onto the main hull of the warship, he fired a concentrated EMP blast, momentarily disabling their power grid. Inside, Lisa saw the effects immediately. The lights flickered out, and the alarms cut off. The aliens hesitated, momentarily disoriented. That was all she needed. Lisa bolted from her cover, taking advantage of the momentary confusion. She sprinted through the corridors, following her instincts, her heart hammering in her chest. The halls were a labyrinth of strange architecture, glowing pathways, and control panels covered in unreadable symbols. But she had one advantage. She had been in worse situations before. Up ahead, a set of blessed doors were sealing shut, an automatic lockdown in response to Jack's assault. Lisa pushed herself harder, sliding under the narrowing gap just as they slammed closed behind her. She landed in a crouch, breathing hard. A familiar voice crackled in her earpiece. Jack's voice, rough and urgent. "Lisa, I'm locked onto your signal. You need to get to the upper hangar bay. I've got a window, but it won't last long." Lisa allowed herself a brief smile. "Copy that. I'm on my way." Behind her, the echoes of heavy footsteps signaled pursuit. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. They were running out of time, and they were about to learn exactly why kidnapping Lisa Carter was the worst decision they had ever made. Jack's ship roared through the void, dodging bursts of plasma fire from the warship. His hands were steady on the controls, eyes scanning the readouts as he plotted Lisa's escape route. The vessel was massive, its dark metallic hull stretching across the horizon, but it was wounded. Systems flickering, shields struggling to compensate after his EMP blast. He'd bought her time. Now he just had to make sure she had somewhere to run to. Inside, Lisa sprinted through the winding corridors, her stolen rifle clutched tight. Alarms still blared, and red warning lights pulsed along the walls, casting everything in eerie shadows. She could hear the warriors behind her, their guttural voices barking orders, their clawed feet slamming against the metallic floors. She rounded a corner, slid behind a bulkhead, and took a breath. She checked her rifle, 3 shots left. Not great. A squad of aliens thundered down the hallway. Lisa didn't hesitate. She popped out, squeezed the trigger, and dropped the first 2 before the others could react. The remaining soldier lunged forward, energy blade igniting as he swung for her throat. Lisa ducked, rolled to the side, and drove her elbow into his ribs. The alien staggered, but only for a second. He recovered fast, swiping again, and Lisa barely had time to twist out of the way. The blade carved through the air inches from her face, sizzling against the wall. She gritted her teeth, reached for the alien's arm, and with practiced efficiency, twisted until she heard the satisfying crack of bone. Da let out a choked snarl, dropping his weapon. Lisa didn't give him a chance to recover. She slammed the butt of her rifle into his skull, and he crumpled. She exhaled sharply, pushing herself back to her feet. No time to celebrate. The hangar was still ahead. She could feel the ship shuddering beneath her, no doubt from Jack's continued assault. He was keeping them busy, but that wouldn't last forever. She pressed a finger to her earpiece. "Jack, I'm close. What's your status?" Jack's voice crackled back, tense but steady. "Running out of time, sweetheart. They're scrambling backup ships. You need to get to the hangar now." Lisa picked up the fallen energy blade, adjusting her grip. "Copy that. Keep the engine warm." She bolted down the final stretch of corridor, pushing past exhaustion. Ahead, the blessed doors leading to the hangar were locked down, thick slabs of reinforced metal sealing her only exit. She cursed under her breath. There was no way she was going back, not with half the ship after her. She scanned the walls and spotted a maintenance panel. With quick, practiced movements, she yanked it open, revealing a tangled mess of alien circuitry. It was nothing like human tech, but she had a knack for improvisation. As she worked, the sound of boots echoed behind her. More reinforcements. She gritted her teeth, yanked a wire, and prayed she wasn't about to fry herself. Sparks flew, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud groan, the blessed doors hissed open just enough for her to slip through. She darted inside just as plasma fire streaked past her, hitting the metal with a scorching hiss. The hangar was chaos. Fighters were scrambling to launch, technicians shouting aerodons as they worked frantically to get their ships in the air. In the center of it all was Jack's ship, a sleek, heavily modified gunship, its engines already humming. He was in the cockpit, weapon systems engaged, keeping the too distracted to notice Lisa weaving through the chaos below. Lisa kept low, using the scattered supply crates as cover. She spotted a group of enemy soldiers near the ship's landing ramp, setting up a mounted turret. If that thing came online, Jack wouldn't have a chance to take off. She gripped the stolen energy blade, took a steadying breath, and ran straight for them. The first soldier barely had time to register her before she drove the blade clean through his back. The second turned, raising his weapon, but she was already moving, sweeping his legs out from under him and slashing across his chest in one fluid motion. The third tried to react, but she grabbed his arm, twisted, and sent him crashing into the turret controls, the system. Sparks flew, and the turret fizzled out uselessly. Lisa, move! Jack's voice snapped through her earpiece. She turned just as another fired at her. She ducked, the shot scorching the wall behind her, and sprinted toward the ramp. Jack swung the side door open, rifle in hand, covering her approach. She hit the ramp running, vaulting inside just as Jack laid down suppressing fire, forcing the remaining enemies to scatter. Go, go, go! Lisa shouted as she strapped herself into the seat. Jack didn't need to be told twice. He hit the thrusters, and the ship lurched violently, engines roaring as they lifted off. Plasma bolts streaked past them, the hangar's defensive turrets coming online. Lisa grabbed the targeting controls, locking onto the nearest turret and blasting it to scrap before it could fire again. The ship shot out into the blackness of space, enemy fighters already giving chase. Jack grinned, flipping switches with ease. Hold tight. Lisa barely had time to brace before he sent the ship into a wild spin, juking between enemy fire. The stars blurred around them as he dove, forcing the fighters to overshoot. Lisa took the opportunity, locking onto van and firing. The blast hit dead center, sending the enemy ship into a fiery spiral. Jack pulled the ship into an upward climb, pushing the engines to their limit. The warship loomed behind them, weapons charging for one final desperate shot. Lisa's stomach tightened. Jack smirked. Not today. He slammed a final command into the controls, activating a sequence. The ship's rear cannons fired a payload of explosive charges, sending them hurtling toward the vessel's weakened shields. The warship shuddered under the impact, its systems flickering, its pursuit grinding to a halt. Lisa exhaled, watching as the massive ship grew smaller behind them. They're gonna regret ever picking this fight. The was burning. The Capita, a sprawling fortress of black spires and glowing red veins of molten energy, now lay in ruin. Explosions rocked the landscape as human forces advanced through the city, methodically dismantling the last remnants of resistance. Smoke curled into the darkened sky, mingling with the shattered remains of their planetary defense grid. What had once been an impenetrable stronghold was now just another battlefield in humanity's warpath. Jack stood at the edge of a ruined balcony, his rifle resting at his side. His face was impassive as he watched the forces crumble. Below, human drop ships descended in waves, their armored troops moving like an unstoppable tide, sweeping through the streets and flushing out the last warriors too stubborn to surrender. Lisa stepped up beside him, her own armor scratched and scorched from the battles leading to this moment. She exhaled, watching the last few enemy fighters scatter like frightened insects. This is it, she said, voice unreadable. This is where it ends. Jack nodded, his grip tightening on his weapon. They took you, he said, his tone edged with quiet fury. They thought they could just take a human and get away with it. He gestured to the carnage below. Now they end and stand. Lisa's gaze drifted toward the crumbling palace in the distance. Even from here, they could see the massive banners of the Empire turn and burning, their insignia now nothing but ashes in the wind. The palace d'Ors, once a testament to their arrogance, had been blown apart. Inside, the Supreme Chancellor of the architect of her abduction, was making his last stand. We should move, Lisa said. Jack tapped his communicator. Bravo team, secure the perimeter. No one gets out. Copy that, sir. They moved quickly, descending into the shattered halls of the palace. The walls bore scorch marks from previous firefights, bodies of fallen guards slumped against the corridors. The air smelled of burning matter and ozone. Jack barely spared them a glance as they pressed forward. This wasn't a battle anymore, it was an execution. Inside the Grand War Chamber, the Supreme Chancellor stood surrounded by what little remained of his personal guard. His ceremonial robes were tattered, his elongated reptilian face worn with fear and disbelief. His empire had stood for centuries, unchallenged, unbreakable. And yet, in mere days, humanity had brought it to its knees. Jack stepped forward, his boots echoing in the hollow silence of the chamber. The guards raised their weapons, but the Chancellor lifted a trembling claw, signaling them to stand down. He looked at Jack, then at Lisa, his sharp teeth grinding together. You have proven yourselves more dangerous than we anticipated. The Chancellor admitted, his voice hoarse. We underestimated you. Jack tilted his head slightly. No. You dismissed us. You saw us as weak, as animals. He took another step closer. You thought you could take one of ours and that we'd just let it happen. Lisa met the Chancellor's gaze. How'd that work out for you? The alien's expression twisted into something between rage and sorrow. He turned to his guards. Leave us. The warriors hesitated. That was not a request, the Chancellor snapped. One by one, they lowered their weapons and retreated, disappearing through the shattered doors. Only the Chancellor remained, standing in the ruins of his empire, facing the humans who had undone everything he had built. I am the last of my line, the Chancellor said, voice heavy. My people are finished. Jack remained silent. The Chancellor exhaled, his posture sagging. Tell me what happens now. Jack raised his weapon, aiming it directly at the Chancellor's chest. That depends. You wanted humanity on its knees. You wanted us broken. His finger hovered over the trigger. But now, you get to learn something we've always known. The Chancellor swallowed. And what is that? Jack's voice was cold. There's no mercy for those who start a war they can't win. Lisa placed a hand on Jack's arm, stopping him before he could fire. She stepped forward, staring down the defeated ruler of a fallen empire. You don't deserve an easy death, she said. You don't deserve an ending. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Lisa leaned in slightly. You're going to live. You're going to see every last one of your people surrender. You're going to hear the stories of how the mighty became nothing but a footnote in our history. Jack lowered his weapon, nodding in approval. You'll spend the rest of your days knowing that your empire wasn't just destroyed. It was erased. The Chancellor's expression faltered, realization dawning. This was worse than death. This was humiliation beyond anything he had imagined. Jack turned and gestured toward the exit. Let's go. Lisa followed, leaving the Chancellor standing in the ruins of his throne room, the weight of his defeat pressing down on him. As they stepped outside, the human fleet loomed in the skies above, their ships casting long shadows over the shattered city. Dropships continued their descent, bringing in reinforcements, medical teams, and diplomatic envoys to ensure the unconditional surrender. Lisa inhaled deeply, the scent of smoke and victory thick in the air. She glanced at Jack. You think they'll ever try something like this again? Jack scoffed. Not in a million years. The last remnants of the empire crumbled behind them, and humanity stood victorious. The message was clear. No one kidnaps one of their own and walks away unscathed. The galaxy would never forget what happened here. And if they did, well, humanity would be there to remind them.